Hello, I'm live. Sorry, I've said that it's going to be. Apologies, I said it was going to be. Start again. Sorry, I'm live. Sorry, I said it was going to be 17:15 or 5:15. Actually, found that it was easier to get online this time, quicker and quite easily. So I'm here to discuss Newcastle United's victory over Southampton in the opening day of the season. But that wasn't the ultimate story, was it? Let's be honest, because I think a lot of Newcastle fans thought that was going to be quite an easy ride on paper, at least, because of the way that they play against teams at home. Because of the fact that they tend to beat these teams, because Southampton were going to come here and play an open style of football. It was going to be quite a good game for Newcastle's head, and their record, 2 wins in 24 on the opening day of the season for Southampton. Newcastle had won their last two at St James's Park on the opening day. So that all of the stats and the records. By the way, if you join the live, as before I get into the talk, if you join the live, please like the video as soon, because it really does help with the algorithm pushing it further. So please get some likes on the video as soon as you come in, and subscribe if you're also new as well. I really appreciate that, because it pushes the algorithm, grows the channel quicker, and means I can do more of these things. But yeah, Newcastle were expected to win this game quite easily, and I think that there was a feeling that it was set up for them. And then the share red card, a red card in any game, but a red card in a game like that really changes the dynamic, because it ultimately meant that Newcastle, even if they were going to win as they did, it was not going to be easy. They were not going to blow away Southampton. It was only going to make Southampton a little bit braver. We'll get into talk about the share card once there's more people in the chat. See, it's already growing. So thank you so much for coming in. Please continue to get some things in the chat. Thanks, Ian, for your thought. I'll get to it in a second once more people are in it. But yeah, it felt like that red card changed the dynamic of the game completely instantly, because it meant that Newcastle couldn't dictate the way that the game was going to go in the same way that you would imagine that they would have liked to, and we all expected them to. But they showed their mettle, and they showed the bite. I thought it was an amalgamation of the two seasons. I thought they were high pressing, they were energetic, but they also showed, like they did last season at points, particularly at the start of last season when their injuries were piling up, that they showed that they can win games differently. They can win ugly. They can battle to games. The red card, what it did was it meant that the defence, it suited Byrne and Kraft when he came on to replace Jacob Murphy. It suited that back four, or the back two at least, to sit deep and just head the ball away. It meant that Southampton, when they got a bit desperate later on in the game, that they were struggling to maintain any sort of semblance of pattern in their play, as they got a little bit panicked. But yeah, I think so. A few people more in the chat. Keep some things going. Two Ian McKenna comments. First time I've seen share booked and not for a head injury, not have a head injury. Yeah, interesting that he never got a chance to get that head injury. It was an Uki game. I don't know what that means, but we've won, and that's a good thing. Yeah, exactly. That's what I mean. That's what I'm trying to say. I think it really shows that Newcastle are in a position to battle to different kinds of wins, and I think that they showed great control of the game. Because actually, the other thing to say is that Southampton were actually threatening a little bit before, when it was 11 men. I thought Newcastle started really well, started really quickly. Southampton grew back into the game as it came along, as it developed, and yeah, I feel like there was a little bit of niggling the game. The game was sort of turning, and I thought Newcastle were poor in possession when they had 11 men. Bruno wasn't around the pitch as much. I know there's been questions about, how match fit can he be, given that he came back late. I thought he was a bit leggy at the start of the game, but he grew into it and became a real force as the game went on. Was a massive reason why they got over the line with winning free kicks and blocking, and same with Isak, really working back for the team, making the defense a very strong unit. And I think, as I say, Newcastle would have dominated the ball a lot more if they had 11 men, you would imagine, and if they'd grown into the game and had the game gone their own way. But it wasn't able to do that, so they had to react and do different things. And the fact that they were able to be so good on the ball in the second half and ease the pressure a little bit, get up the pitch a bit more when they did break away. When Barnes came on, I thought that happened. But mostly it was about, for me, Burn. Lewis Hall. I mean, Lewis Hall was phenomenal, I thought. I think we also need to mention, and we'll talk. I think you thought Hall had a nightmare. I thought he was very good, particularly in the second half. So Marco said he's Hull had a nightmare. My brother did text me saying he would take him off in the first half. I didn't think he did struggle. I think the fact that he was booked was harsh, especially considering that it felt like that Southampton had made the tactical decision to just rotate the fouls. I thought Flynn Down should have been booked for persistent fouling. Jack Stevens should have been booked for persistent fouling as well. That didn't happen. Once Hall had been booked for that, I thought that should have happened. Can you? There's more people in it because there's about 30 people in. Can you all give it a like if you haven't already? Give the stream a like because it really does help the algorithm. I'm not just begging for it. It does help the algorithm. It pushes it further, gives me more, gets me higher up the search engines and all that sort of thing. So it really does help. So I really appreciate that. He gave the ball away in the second half. But he did. I think everyone gave the ball away quite a lot, Doug, to be fair. And actually, what I noticed about Hall was his positioning was very good. He didn't get beaten one-on-one. The algorithm, yeah. He didn't get beaten one-on-one that much. And I thought... the thing is, Ian, it kind of is scary. Ian says that the algorithm, it sounds like a scary thing. It is kind of. We're kind of. If you're on YouTube, you're at the mercy of the algorithm. The more it reacts to, the more people who like things, it'll push more Newcastle fans towards my channel. So just please, as I say, please do continue to like and to share and to subscribe if you haven't already, because I really do appreciate it. I'll get through a few comments in a second, but I just want to sort of give my thoughts on Hall. I thought actually he grew into the game. Yes, he gave the ball away, but that was a persistent issue with Newcastle throughout the game, and he didn't get beaten down the side. Both him and Livramento, as good as they are going forward generally, and that's where we sort of see them come into their own. I thought they were phenomenal defensively. There weren't that many balls into the box. There weren't that many, and when they did come in, then Burn was able to get it through. And yeah, I fully agree that Joelinton is the man of the match, says Chris. And I thought for me he was a great. I think possibly to Crystal Palace get the money that they want for Gahey now. Possibly, I think there'll be movement either way. I think that's quite obvious now. But yeah, I thought Newcastle grew into the game, and actually they didn't dominate. And lots of people say that Southampton should have won the game because they had created more chances and they had all that sort of thing, and they dominated the game in the second half. But actually, I think that there's different ways to play well, and I think Newcastle have shown that they're able to do two different things now. This team can dominate games, overpower teams with their pressing, but they can also sit deep, soak up pressure, battle, and get to the victory. I think that was really, really great to see that. That was really great to see. Joelinton was definitely man of the match. We looked solid when Hall was subbed and Kelly was so strong. Yeah, Kelly is a good. It looks like a good improvement. Sort of like he seems like what you can. So he seems like what Eddie Howe wants to do with Lewis. Not Lewis Hall. Sorry, with that back three. Make the back four, making it into a back three with Dan Burn traditionally playing left back, going into a back three when Newcastle attack. That's something that Kelly allows to happen because he can become into a back three, but he's also a lot more athletic and a lot more. You don't think he'll get beaten as much by pace on that side, and also he can get involved a little bit more in attack as well. Sai says Cher getting sent off is, funnily enough, the exact moment Gahey's price went up to about 80 million. Probably yes. Let's be honest. I'm still very confused about the Gahey situation because it feels like there's mixed messages coming out now about the price and how Palace said that his price has always been 70 million. I'm convinced his price was absolutely 65, and I think if it goes up to 70, then Newcastle need to move on and find somebody else. Hall is gave the ball away 4 times in bad positions. I think that is a very fair thing. I thought defensively, actually, he didn't get beaten too much. I thought he was fairly good, but fair enough, Marco. It's better going forward. Don't rate him as a defender. And that there is kind of, admittedly, that is the issue with that is what that Eddie Howe had to deal with last season. That's why he didn't play him too much earlier in the season, particularly. And that is something he needs to work on. We've got to go shopping in the continent. Can't pay double what you would for a player because they're decent tournament performance. Yeah, I mean, I can understand that argument, but I would also say that it also comes down to the idea that Gahey does sort of come in and I think come in and change the defensive structure, and also he also is not. If you've got a player who comes in traditionally from Europe, it's going to be difficult to instantly hit the ground running. Where Gahey is going to be a player who you're almost certain is going to come in. And I think that if actually, I would have been. I think the fact that Newcastle didn't have pace. Didn't have a pacey centre back today. If they kept 11 men, I think that the frustration, that the ability to get caught on the counter attack would have been much more proficient than it actually was. That they were able to drop deep and play into Burn and Kraft's hands as the game went on. And actually, so I wouldn't say that the red card was a good thing, but it benefited in that sense. But I think actually what the game showed in the first sort of 25 minutes is that Newcastle do need a pacey centre back to help them dictate the game, help them dominate the game more, and have the possession. Because if you lose the ball in midfield, as they did far too often in those first 25 minutes, you can get through you can get at the defence, and as I say, someone with a recovery pace would make a big difference there. Do you think we're going to go for Gomez? I don't think so, but I might be wrong. I think there's much better values. Someone already mentioned on and I didn't mention it certainly on the stream last night when we were talking about Gay, is Diamonde from Sporting Lisbon. He's got, I think, 80 million euros release clause. And he's very young, but I think Sporting Lisbon would probably deal at a cheaper price. Plus, Hugo Viana is the man you need to talk to about that, and he's a big Newcastle. He still loves Newcastle, and I can tell you that because he's told me that. So hopefully, maybe Newcastle could look at doing that job. 51 people in the live. Please do continue to like the video. It really boosts the algorithm. I'll keep saying this every 10 minutes, but please do keep liking. And if you haven't subscribed, please do, because it does help me get a little bit further on. Hall's a midfielder, and I think he's a talented midfielder. He did start his career in midfield, and I think it does that. The great thing about Lewis Hall is that eventually he'll allow that sort of tactical flexibility, but defensively he has been sort of caught out a little bit. This might be a record of nearly 60 people in the live. So I mean, let's we need to talk about the elephant in the room, because we haven't yet. What did you make of the Share sending off? Because by the letter of the law, and I hate that term, but the letter of the law suggests that it was right that he was sent off, because he moved his head towards, and therefore VAR will not overturn it, because he gave the referee a decision to make, and it was stupid of him to do that. But at the same time, Brereton Diaz, the reaction was terrible, and he got him sent off, didn't he? But I felt like Newcastle were a little bit rattled in that first half in general. And I think that actually there needs to be a better control. There was a point where Joelinton was starting on somebody in the box just after the red card, and it was like they're getting at Newcastle need to calm down a little bit. And I think Share has that streak in him, which probably makes him. So it probably helps his performance generally. But yeah, I think that certainly, at the very least, Share shouldn't have got involved, but both heads went in is fair as well. But equally, yeah, it's just don't get involved. Then there's no decision to make. There is the point about common sense, to be fair, because like There was a tackle. Who was it who made the tackle on Gordon? Who dived in and made the tackle on Gordon in the second half? That was more dangerous. It was not. I'm not saying it was a red card. Don't get me wrong. That was more dangerous. That was more likely to do more damage to to a player than Shares headbutt was. But yeah, it's very strange, isn't it? But yeah, it just ultimately, if Share there's no need for him to get involved because I think I can't remember, but I think it was a foul to Newcastle. Was it? I can't remember, but he gets up and he gets involved, and it gives the referee a decision to make, and it changes, as I say, the dynamic of the game. You can't you can't then dictate the game as well. You can't dominate the game in the same way that we all expected. I mean, we sat here on the live stream last night, and the second half of that live stream, if you haven't checked it out, please do. Initially, we were talking about Mark Gahey, but it sort of turned into a sort of preview of the Southampton game. And lots of people were talking about how it would be a good settler for the first game of the season, and the fact that was taken away by Cher getting involved. And as I say, I agree with everything that anyone says about it being harsh or soft, or Burton Diaz put his head in as well. Absolutely agree, but fundamentally, if Cher doesn't do that, he doesn't get sent off. So he needs to take a lot of responsibility for that. But I agree with Gary. I mean, Paulson's performance was very poor. I thought just allowed. I mean, to book Hall for that pullback, which is one thing, but then to not then Flynn Downs, Jack Stevens, and a couple of the other Southampton players were consistently then fouling, and there was no foul. There was no foul made. There was no no booking made to stop that, and that just allowed them to keep doing that. Marcus says the manager has said to Diaz, rattle Cher because he can be headstrong, but it was obvious that he didn't headbutt him. I think that's the thing, though. I think the first part that you've just said is absolutely true. That Cher was somebody that has that in him, and I think the manager can. The opposition will look to target that, knowing that they can do that, and then to do that, it's more simulation than it is. Don't get me wrong. I hope you don't misunderstand what I'm trying to say. It's more simulation than it is a headbutt. But the fact that he's made a move in the eyes of VAR is why VAR won't overturn it. I'm not saying that's what I do. I'm just saying I think that's what they'll view. Nearly 70 people in the chat. Please do like if you haven't already. I'll keep saying it every 5-10 minutes. Just please do, because it does help. No surprise, Smallbone fell and Bruno's kicking off the shot instant. Plus Diaz knew what he was doing, running 15 yards out after the whistle. Yeah, I think that is absolutely true. And look, he had that. He got his karma. He missed that golden opportunity in the second half, and ultimately, I know that now Cher's banned for the. They'll get a 1-match ban for the one. Could it even be 3 matches actually? If it's it'll be because it'll be violent conduct, won't it? So it'll be 3-match ban, and that'll be that Bournemouth, Spurs, and put it in the chat. Someone put in the chat who the other game is. I can't remember who it is. Is it Wolves? Possibly Wolves. But ultimately it means that Newcastle do need to go and be a little bit stronger. Be a little bit more forceful in the window. Maybe make a decision to either pay the money for Gahey or be strong with it. I've seen worse headbutts on Strictly Come Dancing, says Ian. I'd love to know who's headbutted who on Strictly Come Dancing. I do take the point, though. I'm going to go through a few of the comments that I've missed from earlier. But yeah, what did you make of Isak's performance? I thought it was a really good performance in terms of, and I think like last week he didn't score last week, but he put in a good shift, I thought, and was a big reason why Newcastle won the game in terms of not just running back and heading the ball out and being defensively a good defensive forward in that sense, but and pressing, but also holding onto the ball in the way he does, and dribbling past players and making it easy, and just giving Newcastle a bit of a foothold in the game in the second half. I think he deserves a lot of credit for that. Ian says he's never watched Strictly Come Dancing, but he thinks that there probably would be. Isak's through ball for Barnes was deadly. It was very, very unlucky, wasn't it, that Barnes didn't quite get there. One of the pre-match intriguing points was that Dubravka was named on the bench, perhaps only me and Niche, but I was surprised. Yeah, I didn't actually. Honestly, until you mentioned that, and until Pope went down in the second half, I realised I hadn't actually checked that. So, so that is very, very a good point. Yeah, 3 match straight red, says Frosty. Yeah, absolutely. So that means that Newcastle now need to be a little bit concerned, I think, unless they get another centre back. And we're not here to talk about the centre backs. By all means, by the way, put it in the chat and let's talk about it if you want to. But we're predominantly gonna look at centre backs. Gary says cannot go into the next game with Kraft at right centre back, like the Wilson injury. Think it will accelerate transfer. Absolutely do think that. I don't think they will go into Bournemouth. Yeah, Bournemouth. Sorry, the knowledge of the fixtures is all over the place because as I say, I'm not here next week, so the early knowledge of the fixtures is a little bit all over the place. A problem is with Isak. Start again. A problem with Isak is that he runs. If the ball is out, sorry, I'll start again. Jay says a problem with Isak is if the ball is hoof at the field, he rarely wins the aerial duel. Surprised Sula didn't come on. Yeah, that is. I think that's sort of well known to be the one sort of thing that he could work on, and maybe the one thing that Asula might bring, even in this sort of this point of his this point in his development. That's something that he can bring, rather than sort of like expecting to score goals in that second half. He might have, as you say, eased. But I thought he did that fairly well. Just not when as you say, when the ball high up is one thing. But yeah, I think there was a couple of times when the ball was on the he got the ball in the half turn, and he turned the defender and won a little bit, earned a little bit of space and eased it. There was once on the byline, about halfway line, where he I think he won a free kick, and it was a lovely little turn, that sort of thing. So yeah, that is a fair point. But yeah, Alex is asking, does the way that we start games concern people? So sluggish, only get going after 20 minutes, can't keep doing this. That was a fact last season, and it's something that I didn't expect to see. I was surprised because I think Newcastle started the first sort of 5 minutes quite well, and then Southampton got a foothold. And as I say, after that, it became quite difficult to manage the game until the red card. Yeah, I just had to find out we did win. We can sort of talk about. We'll make this. Ian said we did win, so we can talk a little bit more about positively in a second. But yeah, the start was a little bit nervy. We'll move on from the share red card and talk a little bit about the positives. I thought, as I say, Joelinton was brilliant. Longstaff was okay in terms of but only in the same way that we know he's tenacious, he's energetic, he can win the ball and be around, but he doesn't. There were gaping holes in that first half where he wasn't winning the Southampton. Sorry, we're getting through them. I think obviously it's difficult you can't say anything about Murphy. Can we have Joelinton for president? Says Alex. Livramento did great for the amount of times he was tested. Yeah, I think that's a very fair point as well. Livramento. What did you make of I was surprised to see Livramento start. What did you make of Livramento starting over Trippier? And then obviously Trippier didn't come on either later in the game. What did you make of that? Was that a call that you were backing at the time, or do you think were you a bit nervous and maybe Livramento proved you wrong? For me, I would have started with Livramento. I expected, as I say, him to start certainly with Trippier in this game. but Trips may, that is still rumbling on, isn't it, Ian? Trippier could be on his way out. Seems to have gone down a little bit less, and obviously, Eddie Howe has sort of talked about integrating him and said he's not necessarily pushing to move, and that the talk has gone away. Obviously, the sort of flirtation with West Ham in terms of West Ham making an inquiry sort of came and went because they signed Wan-Bissaka. The Saudi Arabian thing is still around, obviously. Good defensive result, but overall thought we should have had more. I think, yeah, Chris. I think Newcastle, the game, the way that this game will be characterized is that 10 men defensive performance, and they had to sacrifice the possession against a team that will have been buoyed by that as well. Like Southampton were going to come and try and play a little bit, and they will have only have sensed an opportunity there, I think, to get through. So we FM Southampton a little bit. If anyone doesn't know what FM Southampton means, it means basically that Southampton were the better team. Newcastle had one shot and scored it and won the game. It's a very common trope on Football Manager, something that doesn't tend to happen to my teams because my teams dominate the ball all the time. Marty Lawrence says, I'm 70. I've never seen a player at Newcastle like Joelinton. Immense in midfield and defence. Not too shabby when it comes to the odd goal or two. I thought as soon as he scored the goal, Joelinton, that I thought back to him in 2019 and when he was playing as a striker. Can you imagine if he had this confidence level going back and playing as a striker now? What would have been? Not saying that he would have scored like Isak level number of goals, but like he looks like he could. I think you could probably put him up front now, and he would do a decent job, and he would score a fair amount of goals because his finishing. And he said the finish was brilliant, superb finish. So it could have been a real. That could be a real. I'm not saying it's an option, but like again, because they've got Asula in, but like if it ever got to the point where there was a point like it was last season when they was really struggling for options when Isak and Wilson were both out, and let's say Asula is as well. It's not very likely, but I think Joelinton is not a joke of a centre forward anymore because of the way he finished that goal and because of the way he finishes quite a few of his chances at Newcastle these days. Matt says, do you feel that Bruno's leadership as captain made a difference without Trippier? I think that's a very fair point, but I think Bruno I think he thrives off that. Do you remember when Czech Tiote, God rest his soul, was given the captain's armband and everyone was sort of worried about it because everyone thought he would be really, it would be a bit too much for him because he's very sort of, the way he played the game was on the edge, and it might, the fact that he might, the added pressure or responsibility might diminish his abilities. It actually made him calmer and it made him better as a leader. He was actually a fairly decent captain in the run that he played in that role. It's a better version of the same thing with Bruno. I think he's already shown that his discipline is better than we thought because of the fact that he didn't get booked last season for 10 games when he was skirting around a too-much ban. But he loves the pressure. If you read his program notes before the game, or saw them on social media, he was talking about wanting to be a legend like Sir Bobby, wanting his picture on the wall in St James's Park, and knowing he has to win a trophy and that sort of thing. But then he plays like he doesn't just. I think he gets the best of both worlds. I think he plays like a leader and steps up and leads by example, and also gets the crowd involved and everything. But he also knows it doesn't go too far, and he also is able to rein it in and channel it rather than sort of letting the sort of passion and desire to do well in that leadership role, which can happen, sort of overdo it. I think. I think that's a really good point. He's also, as Matt's come back and said, great at drawing fouls. And Gary said that he revels in the pressure of not having to of not getting a yellow card late last season. Very fair point. Did Bruno and Joey both evade bookings? Somebody will have to. I think I might be wrong, but did Joelinton not? Or was it Byrne who got booked for throwing the ball away in the second half? Somebody got booked in the second half. Clean sheet, excellent as well. I think that's as to say that it was really, really good to see everything come together the way it did in the second half, particularly as Southampton pushed forward and tried to go for the win. Newcastle held their nerve really well. It was Byrne who got booked. Thanks, Gary. I'm gonna go through a few of your old comments and bring them back from the race start, because there were a few that I missed, I think. So Marty earlier said, first game of the season they played like I expected, out of their skins, but doesn't cover that we were all a half yard off pace in the first half. Yeah, that was something I noticed, particularly of Bruno. I think he grew into the game, but there was a point in the first half where he was not able to sort of like accelerate and make the run forward, or make that little uplift in his game after winning the ball, or Newcastle won the ball back, and that's why, like, usually when he's at his best, the ball just bounces back to him and it's like a magnet to him. It wasn't so much like that in the first half. It was a little bit better in the second, but yeah, that was something that I did notice. Keep going, keep looking. Yeah, so overall, it was a really good start to the season. Did Bournemouth end up losing today, or did they come back? Because they were losing to Forest. I did see Chris Wood scored, didn't he? Not going to lie, he gave away a silly free kick. Did raise my blood pressure. Yeah, that was the one that he did miss, wasn't it? That was he sort of mistimed a challenge, didn't he, in the second, and right at the end of the game, and it was unfortunately the free kick was poor. But I did also like the Nick Pope's game management, let's say, in the second half when he went down with that slight injury. Hull got cooked. Should have been pulled for 30 minutes. Yeah, my brother said that to me as well, and I, as I said earlier, I thought he was a little bit better in the second half, and other people were causing problems with possession. But yeah, that is a fair point that he did struggle at different times in the game. I won't disagree with that. Let's go back a bit further and get some more reaction. So yeah, I think other than that, there wasn't really much. Obviously, poor Jacob Murphy having to get sacrificed after Cher's red card. Didn't really get to see much of him, and that was a whole big thing that he'd been building up to throughout pre-season as well. I think Newcastle. I do think that this has changed a lot of the way that people will view, within the club as well. Paul Mitchell was there, watching next to Jamie Rubin and Darren Eales, so he'll be aware of what needs doing. And I think not that he wasn't already, but I think it's not a case of messing around. Just talking to. I think at the very least, maybe not shut it off with Palace and Gahey, but they do need to maybe open up some conversations again with other defenders, like maybe Thiaw, as I mentioned earlier, Diamonde. If you haven't already, please do like the video and subscribe to the channel, because, as I said, I'll keep saying it, it does really help with the algorithm, really helps push the channel and really helps me develop and grow the channel as well. So please do, if you haven't already, like the video. Joelinton, man of the match, would be my captain. Yeah, possibly. I mean, I don't think Joelinton, Bruno. I think it made Bruno, as I said earlier. So I think the pair of them are both very, very good. And I think actually their understanding is, I know they're very good friends off the pitch, but their understanding on the pitch doesn't really get the credit it deserves. And the development of that over the last couple of years And you can only hope that when Tonali comes in and does what Longstaff does, but better, that's the hope, that the midfield becomes much stronger. And then obviously Willett comes in, wasn't fit enough to start today, and he probably wouldn't have been the right man. Once the red card comes on, you need a bit of good in possession and power and physicality to get them up the pitch, rather than sort of like having the running and chasing and winning the ball high, which became less of an issue once the red card came. So tactically, that probably made a lot of sense. But yeah, it was. I think Joelinton was brilliant today. In some ways, this win is more impressive than last year's opening, because we struggled in these types of games last season. So it's nice to have a confidence build. Yeah, I think there was a point when they were doing well in these games, but also in the second half of the season they obviously did, draw with Bournemouth and lose, and have to come back against West Ham, have to come back to rescue a point against Luton, lose to Forest as well. But that was something that they definitely couldn't have done 2 years ago, because it was kind of like, look, they were very good at what they could, and they took a lot of teams on at St James's Park. But there were a couple of games in that season, particularly at home and away, when they didn't dominate the game and they didn't win the ball high, and they weren't as able to imprint themselves energetically on the game. They didn't tend to get the result. So the fact that they have learned to develop that over the last couple of years is really a massive positive. And I do agree. I can completely understand that that thing that people are saying about that you're saying, sorry, about it being more impressive, or at least as impressive, maybe in a different way to Villa last season. Slightly concerned that the flat three in the middle is back. So much space in between the lines. Yeah, Eddie might be battling to win the ball back, but it's a head scratch for me. I would be surprised if that's just. I don't know if that. It might not be a tactical thing. It might just be a way of. It might just be a way of the game. Of the game, the way the game went, particularly because it was. They went down to 10. Having said that, I don't think. I do think that was kind of an issue at 11 men as well. They started really well, and they were doing. I thought they were shutting the space down well. It wasn't a Girona-esque start, but it was strong enough. And then Southampton started to get into it and developed their own impact on the game, and it changed it a little bit, I think. So that's a very fair point from Jay, I think. Marty says, I get pelters on Twitter when I say it, but Pope, he's saying Pope, obviously that means Pope, really makes me nervous at times. It's a good shot stopper, but at least we can expect from a Premier League. That's the least you can expect from a Premier League goalkeeper. He's no Gordon Banks. It's the fact that he's not particularly strong with his feet, I guess, is when they're trying to play the ball back. That is the one thing that people have sort of said about Nick Pope for quite a while. Yeah, Matt Targett was on the bench, which I think was quite a surprise. Unlike Willock, like Willock, he was never likely to be used because of the because of his lack of fitness. But also the game, like we saw Kelly come on. I think Trippier would have come on before Targett as well. There's probably it was probably unlikely to see him on the bench, but it was interesting to see. It shows that he's back, and I think he's definitely one who could be. Target's a better choice, says Dimitri Mushrooms, which is a great name, by the way. Target's a better choice than at left back. As a defender at left back, I'm assuming that you mean other than Hall. So, what would your answer be? Would you start Hall? Let me know what you think about starting Hall or not in the next game at left back. Bear in mind that Bournemouth have they're very good in transition, and they have the ball quite a lot. Obviously, Kelly going back to his old club, that would be interesting. So you'd start. I'm assuming you'd start Kelly. Let's say that there isn't a centre back in by next week. Would it be Kelly, Byrne, Kraft, and Livramento for you next week? Yeah, I think there's definitely I think that's absolutely fair that 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 Hall will start. Sorry, Kelly will start over Hall at left back. It would make a lot of sense, wouldn't it? He looked very assured, says Jay. The physicality is a huge factor. He dwarfs Hall, yeah, absolutely. For an away game, definitely Kelly. I think that we all know what Eddie Howe's like. He's very sort of safety first in that sense. Hall scares the life out of me when he's ran out. He panics. Um, Doug says clean sheet today. Eddie's unlikely to make changes. Yeah, potentially. I mean, yeah, potentially, but I think there is probably an argument, as people have said, defensively away from home with a team again in transition. Maybe Eddie Howe might look at making changes for Bournemouth next week. But in the middle of the in the middle of the defense, I think depending on how quickly, if there is any joy with the centre back signing and who that is as well, then it means that there'll be there'll not be much change. I think from in terms of the defense, it's the centre back pairing. Sorry. Once Kelly came on, Southampton looked really got no joy. Watching Hall, you can see. Watching Hall, you can see he's played most of his games in midfield. Says Craig, he dives into challenges and gets sidestepped too much. And obviously it does reflect and explain, doesn't it, what's happened with last season with Hall not playing as much and not being as involved. And lots of people were asking why, and I think this maybe at times today with in possession and the fact that he maybe did get run out a couple of times. I thought he did, as I said, I thought he did fairly well in the first half, or very well in the second half actually. But I do take on what people are saying about the transitions and the fact that he looks nervy as well. Marty says Hall is a midfielder. Why try and coach a very talented round peg into a square hole? It's that you'd have to ask Chelsea that as well though, Marty, because Chelsea did start him as a left back, and if you're going to not playing him at left back, then it calls into question the signing in the first place, because that's what they bought him as. They bought him as a left back. Even though you're right, he did start his career in midfield and played quite a few of his games in midfield. He played most of his games, says Craig, 90% of his games in midfield. He's still a teenager, lots of growth, says Jay. An improvement ahead. I agree with that. Newcastle United should sign Mark Gahey for 65 million. And Alessandro Bastoni signed for Newcastle, and Asprilla arriving at Newcastle. Is it James Rodriguez? Someone suggested James Rodriguez. That's interesting. James Rodriguez. Wow. I think they'll move for a centre back fairly quickly. There'll be a noise about what's going to happen at centre back. Either way, the lad is 19 and will be excellent in the long run. Yeah, I tend to agree with that. But but the club did buy him as a left back, whether he played in centre mid, most of his career, which he did. You're right, but they bought him as a left back, and that was the whole point. So do you question as good as he is? Do you question that recruitment decision to bring him in as a left back if he's struggling so much in these sorts of games? Craig says if Steve Parish watched Share getting sent off, he will be 80 million today. I think all of that depends on where Newcastle go. All of that depends on what Newcastle do next. If Newcastle let Palace dictate this, then that's exactly what will happen. But if Newcastle go and find other alternatives and come to, I think Newcastle should get to a point where they weigh up they can make a move. They get a deal in. They understand what the deals are for three different defenders, and then they weigh up the pros and cons, and they make a move for one of them. That'll give them the strength of their conviction with going for this thing, because at the moment, Palace are running rings around them because of the way it's working. Ajiri says Joelinton was man of the match. I think I agree with that, certainly. I won't pay more than 60 for Gahey, says Craig. I'd probably go for Tomori. Tomori's a very interesting one. Milan has been interested in for a long time. Milan have been sort of more keen to sell Teao, I think. They've also got Pavlovic who's come in there, so there could be an opportunity to move for somebody like that. But I think, as I say, Diamonde, 19 years old, absolute powerhouse, everything Newcastle need in a defender, and probably available at a very least sort of like just under what Gahey's worth, even though his release clause is 80 million. I don't think Sporting Lisbon are in a position like Palace are, where they can really afford to turn down sort of 50 million pounds for a defender, and he less proven and there's more risk, and the fact that he's so young and everything, but the quality. I mean, he was a real cornerstone in them winning the league last season. He'd be a really, really good addition for me, and I think it's definitely worth at least looking at to understand what could happen with him. As I say, I think Newcastle should get to a point where they've got three options, and they should then make a decision. And if Gahey is available for 70 million, but Diamonde is available for 50, Tomori's available for whatever, draw up the pros and cons and make your decision, and make it pretty quickly. And that's only going to get more intense now that Cher's now out for 3 games. Tomori had a mistake in him. I think he's not the level we need for the Prem, says Dimitri Mushrooms. Again, still my favourite YouTube name that I've ever seen. Isak, sorry, I mean, if you go super young, you're relying on Cher and hopefully not setbacks for Lascelles. Possibly, but also he could also adapt in a way that Livramento has, and he is young, but he is also experienced for his age as well. The fact that, as I say, he played a really, really crucial role in Sporting Lisbon winning the title last season. So it'll be really interesting to see if something happens with him. I mean, the fact that he's still available it says quite a lot. Shazza to be sent off doing that with his head stupidity. Yeah, I tend to agree with that, Craig. I do understand the suggestion that he should maybe have done that he's been done in. Obviously, it's true that he's been done in by Burton Diaz. Maybe the VAR should take in common sense a little bit. But as soon as he's made his move, and I take the point that Burton Diaz isn't entirely innocent party in this as well. But there's just don't get involved. Just walk away from it, and that would be that. So we'll keep it going for a little bit longer. But has your expectations changed on the season? It's a real difficult one to sort of, because I think really they've reacted and won very positively in difficult circumstances. But have you changed your opinion on the season given that they've won this game in the way that they have? Do you still think Champions League? Do you still think top 6? Do you still think it'll be difficult? And I'm talking right as of now, so no signings. You can't factor in a centre back and a right winger. As of now, do you think this season's going to be successful? Has that changed since? What curry have you gone for, Ian? Ian's ordered a curry. 3 points on the board, and life's looking good. It all depends on the curry, though, because if it's korma, which I highly doubt it is, I'd be very disappointed. But if it's a good curry, oh nice, naga lamb, excellent choice. I'm a chicken madras man myself personally, but that's a good choice as well. Too small sample size, I can't judge after one game. Fair enough, says Craig. That's fair enough. If anything, compared to last season, more successful. I think last season was in way the reason last season failed mostly, not always, but mostly, was down to a lot of things that shouldn't, you would hope, impact this season, because it wasn't just the number of injuries; it was also the direct impact of those injuries. Like, because the players who were fit to play were playing all the time, they weren't fully fit. They weren't able to give their all, and get those very little training done on the pitch. All of those things shouldn't be an issue this season, but that adds to different sort of pressure, doesn't it, as well? Yeah. So I think it's overall it's been a good result. As I said, someone said earlier, it was a surprise to someone said earlier it was a surprise not to see a Sula, and I think that was true, because like it was a very fair point that's where Isak maybe lacks, is that ability to win the ball in the air, and it would have been good to see a Sula come on maybe a little bit, for 5 minutes at the end just to help. But ultimately, that's nitpicking, because they did the job and they got over the line. So who's to really say? Ian has also bought keema naan bread, tandoori lamb chips, and vegetable rice. That is a very, very good order. I like that Indian order. Indian is for me. Indian and Chinese is like ultimate Saturday night stuff. Unfortunately, I've just got pizza from Morrison's to put in the oven after I get finished with this. Glamour. That's people think journalism and YouTube is all glamour. That's not the case. But that's a very, very good order. Are we going to have like 30 people ordering Indians off the back of this live stream? Not both at the same time, says Ian. Go on, everyone else, give me your favourite Indian takeaway orders as well, just while we're at it. I'm joking. I'm not being serious. If obviously put them in your chat if you like, but it's not a serious question. So everyone's generally everyone else's. I've been home in 10 years. I crave Clayton Street chippy like you wouldn't believe, says Jay. Where do you live? Just out of interest. There's nothing more serious, says Ian. Are we all seriously here talking about Indian takeaways on Saturday night? This is brilliant. Wow, Hannah, how do you like it? Do you like living out there? So yeah, I think for me, who else was people's other man of the match today, other than Joelinton? Who else would you give if it isn't Joelinton? Who else do you think deserves a big pat on the back for their performance today? I thought Byrne, as I say, was brilliant. Craig says chicken vindaloo, keema, pilau, rice, chips, onion bhaji, chapatis, and poppadoms. Perfect. For me, it's just madras, pilau, rice, naan breads, poppadoms. I'm very simple, but it's very, very good. And I'm not unfortunately eating that tonight. And now I feel that's brilliant. I'm pleased that you're enjoying life out there, Jay. It's fantastic to hear. But do come back for a match at some stage if you can, because it's getting good. So yeah, who else does anyone think was man of the match today, if not Joelinton? I think Byrne, as I say, the circumstances helped him, but he was good. Generally, the defense just hooked everything away. I think Tino deserves a massive pat on the back for his performance. I don't think Hall deserves the criticism he seems to have got. Chicken Rogan Josh, says Sai. Bruno did canny. Bruno Bruno is the other one who I think grew into the game, as I said earlier. So yeah, this has been a very, very good first day, hasn't it? Let's be honest. I think the fact that did anyone? Here's another question. Did anyone? It's the chat is just literally all Indian takeaways now. Byrne says, "Can't believe I'm going to say Longstaff was very good." Says Gary. Did anyone's opinion on the victory change at all as soon as Cher got sent off? Were you concerned that the win wouldn't come, or did you believe that the team had enough to do what it did? And I think that's what's really good, is for me the confidence level. Actually, there was a spell at the start of the second half where Southampton came into it a bit, but it felt like it felt like it was fine majority of the time. Like they weren't breaching. Bruno was good in the midfield. Longstaff, as Gary mentioned, Burn. The middle of the pitch was really good. The right of the pitch was really good, and as I say, I'll say it again. I don't think for me the left hand side was as bad as people say, but I take it on board that Hall was a weak link. Didn't feel like they were going to score. Yeah, exactly. I agree with that. It never felt like they were going to score. After we scored, I felt we could see it through. Had a few scrambles in the area, but they never carved us open. There was that header at the end, wasn't there? There was a header at the end that was, and obviously Smallbone's free kick. There was a header in the end that went straight into Pope's arms. I can't remember whose it was, but it really felt like at that stage, Newcastle had already set their stall, and Southampton were losing patience and losing the sort of belief in themselves. The red card lifted the players, although possession stats beg to differ. Southampton couldn't hit a barn door. Standing against Diaz, Bluff deserves an Oscar. I said that on Twitter. It definitely was a very poor. It was very poor from him. What's the? Sorry, I did see. It was Alcaraz. Yes, I did see that it was what someone said. It was 1-1. What's the Villa score now? Is it still 1-1 or Villa ahead? Again, this bit's going to be awful for anyone watching back because it's just me talking to people who are just typing back. But it's 1-0. Someone said 1-1. Was it a VAR decision? Oh, okay. I thought I saw someone say it was 1-1. Oh, okay. Sorry, I might have misread that. I'm gonna probably wrap this up now, so you can all go and eat your Indians and have enjoy the rest of your weekends. I'll be back on the Monday show. 1-1 was okay. I'll be back on the Monday show to give a little bit more of a reflection on this game. Also to discuss Mark Gahey and the centre back situation, which hopefully might look a little bit different at that point. But please do continue to like, share, and subscribe. Thanks so much to everyone who has joined this live stream. Everybody should go off and enjoy. Thanks. Ian's going to send me a poppadom. Do all enjoy your evenings. Enjoy your Sunday. Great result for Newcastle United to start off the season. Absolutely brilliant. I think the manner of which, as we've said, was great. And I think add a centre back to calm things down, and things will feel a little bit better. Thanks, guys, and I'll see you next time. I'll see you Monday for the Monday show. There is also going to be another transfer live on Wednesday, as that'll be the last one that's of the summer schedule, if you like. But so this week it's Monday show, Thursday show, and live on Wednesday. Thanks so much, guys, and I'll see you next time.